Thank you. See anyone joining us virtually, but we'll just keep it up.
Not me, I'm just. Nice try. Nice try.
No pressure.
He's next in line.
Yes.
Well, we will call this meeting to order. It's 4:01. So, are there any members of public? You said no, Thomas. Okay, okay.
Nobody loves us.
And no one in here either. I mean, what's there not to love? All right. Thank you. No, no.
Is anyone doing that? Or whose turn is it? Oh,
I will speak. So this is being recorded, and then our administrative assistant, Celeste Higgins, will watch it afterwards and do the minutes and
That's the new.
take on that duty.
wow.
Yeah. Nice. As soon as they got rid of me, things improved.
And if I would channel Lindsay, are we allowed to play before?
Yeah, I checked with Genevieve, our city
Oh,
assistant city attorney, as long as we are here to let the people in. Then
oh, good. That's great. So, open time for public expression, there being none. Oh,
Okay,
well, Larry,
should I be
yeah.
Okay, well, I came, I mean, like a bad penny, you can't do me. So I am clearing out my bookshelves. And for the chief, to add to the repertoire of stuff, some of the textbooks that I used to study both structure and wildland firefighting. And that's a really good one for folks that are coming into the command ranks, the captains and what have you. They have to do a lot more writing. That's a really useful thing. I wish I had discovered it earlier in my career as an investigator, because I started out with actually without even samples of reports. And it took me over the course of a number of years to develop reports that in the end I thought were pretty good. And I had comments from a couple of really experienced investigators that said they were. And the other thing is, I brought another full set of the yearbooks that I did from 2009 to 2017, hot off the press, not even open yet. I'm thinking that one of the places that a set of these should really go is the Santa Fe Public Library. I gave them a copy of the first one back when it was first printed, but had not done the same with the rest of them.
You took all the photographs.
Who did?
You did all of these photographs.
Oh, yeah, and then some.
Wow.
I mean, this is
what made it into the book, right?
yeah, this is so the way this works, these are not published, you know. No major publisher has picked these up and printed them by the thousands. These are printed on a print on demand basis by a real high-end publisher. This is kind of like you can get your family photos in Snapchat and what have you. You just upload all the photos and they do all the photo composition and what have you. These, I did all the photo composition. All they did was the printing. So where there are typos or goofs in the layout and things like that, that's all on me. And there are one or two exceptions. And that is, for example, the back of the one that the chief has in his hand now is one of the historical photos of the really old days of the department. And there are little bits and pieces. That's just a little You know, the kind of thing that, sometimes catches your eye, on a fire. That might have been a wild one, I don't know. But put them to good use.
Larry, how many did you have of each book printed?
Well, this is the third time I've had them
Third
printed.
set, okay.
Third set.
Cousin Daryl,
There is. Yeah,
Daryl White.
yeah,
There you go. Totally acceptable, totally acceptable.
yeah.
No, this is amazing. So first and foremost, let me say thank you. This is certainly something that we're gonna cherish and appreciate. And I think, as you know, I'm looking to try to assemble photographs for our upcoming 150th anniversary yearbook, and just probably a periodic monthly release that entire year, either with your reports and or with the Hotshot News.
Yeah,
So,
great.
that being said, you came out of pocket for these. We want to make sure you're reimbursed for your expense.
Well, those are, tell you what, I'll order another set, and if the department would like to do it as a donation to the library, that would be a really good thing. How about that?
How about that then? Whatever works best.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
I think that would, I think getting them in the library, I think would be a great thing, because it gets the department's activities out there.
but procedurally, I gotta make sure we can operate as a organization donating to another organization. So let me
Okay,
work on that. It may be better to reimburse, but in fact, I can't ask her because she's not technically the person I'm supposed to ask anymore. But she probably has a good idea as whether or not that's permissible.
one way or the other, I will work it out with the chair.
Right.
So,
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're not gonna have to look at the photographs any further.
No, I don't think so. But he's captured the last 10 years in here. What I also need is some more pre 1940, 1930, 1980, you know, I want to get,
and
Further back.
I have some things that I think really ought to go into the historical record that, you know, I've got a lot of stuff that's not in those books. A lot of it is on the Photo 50 website, and, you know, you can pull down anything you want there. The photos and what have you are not as high resolution as what I have.
Right.
And there are things that that I did that I'm not 100% certain they're on the Photo 50 website. I think they are. I arranged a lunch one time with Bill Walker and Chuck Daniels, and really old time guys from, well, the signaling panel that you found in the Walker was the guy that did the wiring to the call boxes throughout
Wow.
the city. So I interviewed them, I videotaped the lunch, and there's some storytelling. And I separately did an interview and transcribed it. So that's all available, and I'll get it to you.
Okay,
One way or the other.
thank you so much. This is going to be a huge addition to our library and our yearbook efforts here. So
Good.
thank you. Absolutely.
Is there a way to tie this into the historical subcommittee
Right.
and the things, and maybe reference that these will be available at the library, or?
I'm not historical.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
It was
right.
Steve was doing that originally, and yeah, I picked it up a little bit, but we kind of got off track for a while. For a while, we were working on the
Right.
displays for the
Yep.
lobby, and one thing and another, and we didn't carry it beyond that. But I'm thinking of this stuff as being partly in connection with that.
Yeah,
And there's some other things. I had the investigation guidebooks and code books that I inherited from Chuck Daniels that I gave the chief at the last meeting. I have digital copies of all of those now, so that can be made available. There is someplace in, I hope, it get out of the mezzanine of 51 before it got torn down. There was a handwritten logbook. It's called the day book. And it basically is the record of the department's calls from January 1st, 1911 to December 31st, 1921. And I digitized that.
Where's the original?
Well, I don't know.
So
I
that,
hope
that's
it's
something
around.
we'd have to look at because there were some things stored at 519 4th Street. And I have a couple of books in my office that are in safekeeping right now. To Mr. Leckman's point, I think I was gonna point to, there's a couple of display cases out in the library. I'm not sure if you saw those when you passed by coming in, but PD has spent pretty good money on those 2 display cases from what I understand. They're supposedly pretty secure and they also will illuminate at night. We're hoping to replicate those and maybe put them along the wall on this other side as well. So that's an opportunity to start trying to decide what we want to put in and when.
Yeah,
And whether or not we're going to rotate things as an example, but how will we also put some sort of card or something there to explain what it is briefly? And so a
yeah.
lot of work to be done still in that area, but I'll certainly report more on, what's going to happen here with the PSC and the lobby and open house and decoration committee. As soon as I get more information, I think they're starting to slowly resurrect that. As you see the display cases purchased, that's a good sign. Things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, one of the things that we discovered early on is that there's a lot of material in the hands of former employees or citizens that relate to the department's history. When the Banning House was torn down, I don't want to be critical of the procedure, but I would have given an arm and a leg to have a couple of days to go through that house because even the basement was full of stuff. And I got in there the day the contractors started to go through it prior to actually bringing in the demolition gear. And I started finding stuff. I found an old hand pump, SRFD, and I snatched it. And the guy said, no, you can't have that. It belongs to us now. And I said, well, yeah,
Wow.
sorry.
Watch me.
So I did take it.
Yeah.
And it's floating around here someplace. So
I think there's truth in that. We had an individual the summer before last, who was directly related to Wayne Tribbett, who was chief here
Yes.
from 1961 to early 1971 or 2, right before Chief Marcucci became chief.
Right.
Brought several items that his mother-in-law had been storing in her basement. There were photographs, his old actual badge.
Yeah.
Yes, so we have some other items, cufflinks and other things that are still sitting in my office waiting to be displayed as well, so.
It's and you can, in some cases, you may not get an outright gift of things, although I think that's the appropriate thing in most cases. But we started talking about how do we handle things that could be on loan? And I ran into this because that day book, when I digitized it, I got a copy to the History Museum at Boyd House. And I also donated several other things that came my way. And those people are real museum people. So they wanted a lot of paperwork and provenance and this, that, and the other thing. And, was it being donated? Was it being loaned? Were there conditions and acknowledgements and this, that, and the other thing? So when you get into that, it's, serious business. And there are software systems. And I started looking into them and, you can get museum type software that takes into account things like stuff that is donated and where it came from and all of that and the stuff that's on loan.
So to your point, and I'm sorry, Nadine, I know you want to finish with the rest of the meeting, but I'll say this quickly. Dr. Mizrock actually provided me with 2 San Rafael Fire Department hand buckets that were leather, circa late 1800s, early 1900s. Those are also in my office. And he came up with the idea of the donation letter, identifying who donated
Yeah.
what, when, and descriptors, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera. So because to your point, there may be some other individuals that would like to donate, not just gift it. So, and they want to know that it's going to be used or placed somewhere where
Right.
the public can see it. They don't want
Right.
it to just sit in a shelf somewhere,
Right,
you know, in a closet. So,
Right.
but yeah, absolutely. I think, and if there's anyone that has any items for donation and they're looking to ensure that we have a document, I have a draft of a document we can use for that purpose. And I actually used it once for an individual who had pictures of the 4th Street fire back in the late 50s. I've got 2 giant pictures that were in his office at his insurance company. And literally, it's down on the corner where the, not Soul Food, so Cafe del Sol is located. That's where that event actually took
Right,
place.
yeah.
So any of you who have time, who want to go and take a look.
yeah, that was the Marview
Yeah.
Motors,
Yeah.
Marview Motors firm.
Two quick questions. If you know, and if anybody on the table would, if you, does the IJ have a historical photo library?
The IJ does have a very extensive library. Uh,
That may get you.
that's, yeah, but it's theirs.
Yeah.
But you know how your backdoor into that might be the gentleman on the Fire Foundation, Jeffrey Kramer, whose father owned the IJ. That's your boy.
Yeah,
Tap him on the
And maybe
shoulder.
Mr. DiVincenzo, maybe he might be able to help out too.
I don't know him.
I
Oh,
always
okay.
found it to be really helpful.
Yes.
So the other thing I was gonna suggest is there are probably people that have things of consequence. Maybe add to the Hot Shot newsletter or somewhere,
Something in the IJ.
have it
That's
be a
correct.
constant notice, like every month that we're looking for donations of department memorabilia, because you know, if I'm Mrs. Jones sitting at home and I've got it, I might not know that you even want it.
And it is
Next
a-
door.
Yeah, and it's a
Yeah.
tax deduction
Yeah.
and.
there were a couple of cases where, Bob Tong, late Bob Tong, my friend, who was, the IJ's photo editor and photographer, for many years, got some shots that, I really, wanted to include in the Photo 50 thing, and Bob got me copies and gave me an authorization to use them. His boss, when he started at the IJ, was the father of Gary Hacks. Gary Hacks was, you might know that name.
Oh, yeah.
So Gary's dad was the photo editor for the IJ for many years, going back into the 50s, I think, and maybe even earlier. I don't know what Gary has these days. I've lost track of him, but
He was,
that would be somebody to look up that might very well have in a personal collection. Some
Gary
interesting
Trapp, was it?
Hacks, H-A-X.
he ran the memorial service that we just did at the Marinwood.
For Paul Crimmins?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Gary Hacks was one of the 2 MCs, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Remember he and the other gentleman ran the whole event?
Yeah, that was Kenny Martin
And Gary
Yeah,
Hacks.
yeah,
Okay,
Same vintage, those 2.
got it. Thank you. It's great information.
Well, all the sources.
oh, okay.
Checking in on us.
Well, there you
That's
go.
an inside source.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I don't mean to, I'm sorry, I've taken up way
No, it's
a
fascinating.
Great.
big chunk of the time
Okay,
here.
Thank you. And Chief, I'd also note that for the activity logbook, the 9/11 to 21, you may want to ask the city clerk's office, because we try to keep those in the vault. That we go.
Yeah.
In an unknown location.
Under a mountain.
You said city clerk's office? Yeah, okay.
They'll know.
If they have it.
They'll know.
We used to call them company journals, but, wow, okay,
That's great. Those are amazing. Thank
great,
you.
thank you.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
such talent.
Great, thank you so much. And, right now, they're all, so many of them are people we know. which
Yes,
That's really neat too.
yes. And unfortunately, there are also a lot of
Yeah.
people who passed.
Yeah.
Including Paul and just a bunch of others.
Thank you. Okay, given that our attendee is an internal, there's no more public expression. We'll move on to the approval of minutes. So our last meeting was canceled due to no quorum, so March 8th. Meeting minutes, everybody reviewed. Okay. Do I have a motion? Yeah.
The whole thing.
That's right. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second,
Great. Meeting minutes from March 8th approved. All right, our fire foundation.
So I have a question. This is for this group. We have to have 4 people to have a quorum, correct?
no, 3.
Great.
Oh, because I was gonna say, I'm an alternate, so I don't count. So I was thinking we don't have a
You
quorum.
would.
You would.
Yeah.
I would,
Because you exactly.
Okay.
Feel like who's absent.
Exactly.
So you're Tom.
so Fire Foundation, the big agenda is the efforts to put back on the crab feed. That is like, I want everybody to know that. That is front and center for the Fire Foundation. The date, mark your calendar, is December 7th. And it's gonna be at the old venue, right? And so I would say to the commission, spread the word.
That's a Thursday.
Is it December 9th?
9th.
Say no.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I heard
Says
Oh, it
Saturday.
shows a Thursday?
No, the 9th is a
Okay,
Saturday.
okay,
That's great.
okay. They're obviously gonna need serious volunteers because firefighter DeLambert is no longer, and he provided an incredible amount of the workforce to run the show. So if you know anyone that wants to help with the work, they're gonna need a lot of help. There's no other way to say it. And so obviously, as commissioners, I think it would be great if we could spread the word. Also, there's gonna be ticket sales. There's also gonna be raffle items. So, anything that the commission can bring to the foundation, I'm sure they're gonna be over the moon happy about it. So that's like the key agenda item. And Chief, you may want to add to that comment because you're, I know, intimately involved
Right.
with putting it back together.
Yes, so, Mr. Devlin, Chief Thompson, myself, and I'm missing somebody, I'm sorry, I
Ms. Rock?
apologize. Dr. Misrock, that's it.
Right.
We've met on a couple occasions already to start outlining what it looks like to resurrect the crab feed. And given that, Captain DeLambert's absence from assisting with this needs to be filled in by any and everybody who possibly has relationships with folks in the community, whether it be the stores that, donated items such as hibachi grills and power tools and other things that were actually part of the silent auction and or raffle items. And so with that, there's conversations taking place right now with some of the folks who, for instance, have a pasta making facility somewhere here in Marin County. Some of the vendors from Napa, Sonoma, and or elsewhere who might be willing to donate bottles and or cases of wine. And so we're looking to get that effort mobilized pretty quickly. I'm having a huddle up with the battalion chiefs and chief officers tomorrow to help spread the word through the morning meetings that take place with the company officers to share this with the crews so that information is starting to float around. And we're going to be looking for volunteers to assist with a variety of different aspects of the crab feed lift this year. And so,
This is only
With that-
coordinated through your office, right?
no, actually, it's actually through the Fire Foundation, but I'm assisting with trying to help with materials, trying to help with manpower or staff power. And going out and actively starting to solicit some of the agencies and businesses who once donated to see whether or not they'd be willing to do so again, or even if it's on a scaled down version, see if we can find some new donators. As an example, I purchased some equipment from one of the local exercise places. I'm hopeful that they'll, see that, hey, we spent some pretty good money here on some of our equipment. Maybe there's a small thing you can do to just continue the relationship and help with our auction, our crab feed, our ability to generate funds. So just want to, piggyback on what Commissioner McCusker stated, and I think the more we can do early on to get a lot of people involved and start identifying who's going to participate in what area will help our planning effort. I've seen crab feeds from afar. I've been involved in them only as an attendee, not as someone who's actually been behind the scenes coordinating. And I've seen crab feeds involve several hundred people. And I believe this is somewhere in that same range. And so that's a monumental lift.
It is.
We were looking for the banners also. There were banners, I guess, were the roll-up banners that cost, well over $1,000. And they announced the crab feed, maybe 30 feet by 4 feet, banners or something along those lines, is my guess. But I reached out to the battalion chiefs who were at 1051, as well as the company officers who were at 1051 while this facility was being built. No one seems to know where they are. So it's pretty unfortunate. So we got to get moving again on getting something like that restored.
Are
and
those the ones
printed
that
pretty
the
quickly.
Department of Public Works puts up at both ends of the city? Or are they-
Crossing the street, perhaps?
Yeah, hanging over
Yeah,
Fourth
it's-
Street.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
Fourth
possible.
Street.
I haven't seen the crab feed banners myself, but I'm gonna assume that Public Works will be
Did
involved.
we
in
have
that.
a
I'm aware of DPW, and I might know where they're riding.
That's possible. Yeah, certainly worth checking.
Lambert doesn't know where they are.
I haven't spoken to Captain Lambert about it, so.
We for sure had those?
We have the banners.
Yeah.
I've seen for various
Yeah.
occasions.
Yeah.
so
What about for the crab feed?
There
That I
was.
don't remember specifically.
But not hanging over Fourth.
Yeah,
They were at the actual event is where I saw them.
So we also have a new staff member that we were just introduced today. She comes from Cal EPA and also has City of Oakland background. She works with digital and open, come on, thank you. I was about to say open space. You see where my head is at.
Yeah.
And she's got some great ideas on how to get out and do more marketing and more public outreach. And I think this will be one of those projects I'd like to see her try to help us out with. Not directly involved, being that, this is not the city's responsibility, but at least as far as ideas and suggestions, you might be able to give us some to kind of push us in the right direction in getting the word out to more people, considering this is something that's kind of been dormant for the last 3+ years. So I think her efforts combined with the word of mouth and everything else will help, ensure that we have a lot of people.
Her name is.
Ivana. Yeah, I don't know her last name. Ivana.
So that's,
She's with our department.
She's with the city's IT department.
Okay.
Yeah.
so Donna, I'm happy to help as I have in the past with the publicity and getting things in the paper and elsewhere, in stores, social media. All that, we
So
can
let that
resurrect
be
that. Maybe
known.
we start a little bit earlier this time since it's been a few years. And since we also not just want to get people to attend the event, but also donors and,
right.
for the auction.
So do you want to contact, Jack Devlin
Sure.
and Lynn Thompson and let them know that you?
Yeah.
That would be the
I've worked with
most,
Jack in the past.
direct
so, yeah,
path.
happy to.
yeah. Great. The other thing that was mentioned, there is a memorial service that will be held for Rick Hewitt. Tentative date is July 7th. So I just wanted to share that with the commission. And then on a completely different note, since I am alumni of San Jose State University, there was a fascinating article in this, their alumni magazine that I just was like, my gosh, how cool is that? San Jose State University wildfire Disciplinary Research Center. They had written up, and it says it's the only National Science Foundation Industry University Cooperative Research Center on wildfire in the country. Pretty cool, huh?
It is. I'm wondering how much different that is in Colorado State's forestry program and what they've done.
Obviously different, but would you like to have this?
I would.
Yeah, I was
Absolutely.
like, huh,
Thank you. It's right here in our backyard too.
exactly.
Thank you. Thank
There's
you.
your trivia for the day. Big things going on at the university there.
Oh, yeah.
It is wonderful.
They're on fire.
And that's pretty much all I have. I just, like I said, there's other little things that the foundation is doing, but the biggie is the traveling. And it's not that far away now.
Yeah. So, and of course, the fire commissioners usually always help out day of, so you can count us in for that. And then,
You usually do what?
we help the day of. We
Oh.
help with setup and,
Right,
anything that.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
To one, just because the oceans are treating us so well. Is there a plan B if we don't have a crab season?
I think they talked about possibly going up north.
We did that once.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's always Alaska. Right, got it.
But it's
Oregon,
a lot more
Washington.
expensive.
Yeah.
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 A lot more expensive.
Mhm.
It's been bizarre here.
Yeah.
Every year,
Good point.
every year that they did it, it was always iffy whether or not they were gonna get the crab.
Yeah, right.
Well, they ended it early this season after starting late. So I'm hoping that there's just so much crap that they're looking at, you know, what, they're not gonna do anything.
They gotta do something with
But the question is, what's gonna happen with the whales, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not they're migrating and become a problem with the crab nets and things of that use of traps. So we'll see.
Chief, I know you have an event tonight. so
I do,
I'm gonna
I do.
Get you out of here. All right, so chair and commission member reports. I will start with you, vice chair.
The only thing I'm gonna throw out is what was also included in the invitation to this meeting, and it's a website. From the League of California Cities, and it has to do with the Brown Act changes for 2023. Now, the Brown Act has been around since 1953. 2 weeks. It has now come, well, it's always been the base for how business is conducted in the political arena. It's been dusted off recently by the city of San Rafael. And I think in a later meeting, we're going to get into a more lengthy discussion of its impact on the bureaus, committees, commissions of the city. But before that happens, this is an interesting read. It's an easy read, and I would recommend it to everyone. And for those who are watching this on tape and the public, it's a website that's been published relative to the commission, so it's easy to find. The only reservation I have, having said that, is that when we deal with website addresses, they themselves don't last forever. So if we go back 10 years, well, go back 5 years, and somebody finds something in the minutes of a meeting, and they go to that site and it doesn't exist, nothing we can do about it.
This though should have been printed out as part of the package online. So if we go to the fire commissioner, today's date, and look at our meeting package, it should be the actual
The actual
document.
document, okay, that,
Because you're
that
absolutely
solves
right.
that problem.
Yeah.
Nothing else. I've had a meeting with the chief and with Chief Senate. And we discussed a number of issues relative to the commission and the department, and they're, as they say in the trade, in the works. Nothing that warrants any discussion at the table right now. That's it for me.
Thank you.
So, Chief, I'll just offer my services again with Thomas and others to help with any public community outreach,
Appreciate that.
especially as the rains have now receded. So we're getting ready to buckle up for fire season, as if there is a fire season year round now. Happy to help with any of the public communications and ways that we can create awareness around things, and knowing that this year could be a much more intense year than previous years. And we've had some great conversations, so it's probably just reorienting on things and determining the editorial calendar and all the things that we've discussed in the past.
So I would ask that you coordinate efforts with Thomas Wong again, but
Mhm.
Thomas is gonna be fairly busy over the next few months because he's trying to help out another division that has staffing challenges right now. So Danielle Jones is our new administrative analyst, and I think she's gonna be very well suited to partner with you on some of these.
Great.
things. I think you'll find that she's very proactive and gets things done quickly.
Yeah, we had a call a couple of months ago
Did
with
you?
Thomas, Danielle, and myself.
Oh, that's
So
great.
I'll reach out to Danielle again.
Okay, and I'll let her know that you'll be in touch as well. Thank you.
Sounds great. That's it.
I'm good.
We go back to.
Yeah, one of the things, was recently in the news, and I wanted to ask the chief for a reaction. Novato Fire Department, there was a story in the RJ about Novato Fire Department starting a 5-year program to create basically a fire break around the city. Okay. Looks good, sounds good, feels good, it's all the right things, all at the right time. What happens in year 6?
Well, that depends. I think it depends entirely on year 6 would be about what the Measure C funding sunsets. We're 4 years in right now, right?
Right.
So I think there's probably going to be what I would assume would be a very comprehensive effort to try to compel the voters to again support a renewal of that measure or some semblance of it.
Sure.
So that would be the guess, but in the interim, that's a 60-mile project, and it's actually slightly part of what I was going to touch on. Because that was one of the huge projects that I thought was very, attention grabbing. And certainly is going to work to create a buffer for them if they don't have embers that are dropping within that perimeter, if you will. So
The part of the question, which I ask it, is we are doing a lot of very, very proactive cleanup, for lack of a better term, all around San Rafael. Now, in my case, I got nailed for some bamboo. It's gone. It won't come back. Others had to reduce this or move that or. How active is this program going to be year after year? It's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. They start at one end, they go to the other, then they go back, they start it again, and it never ends.
right.
So are we creating programs that never end? We'll always have inspections, we'll always have the rules, we'll always have the.
In answering that, I'm going to say that this is going to be, at least for the foreseeable future, unless we've done something major to drastically alter the landscape, which I can't see us doing that because of the ramifications of carbon emissions and everything else. If we remove all of our trees, as an example, what have we just done, right?
Right.
But I think to responsibly remove vegetation, to ensure that we don't have vegetation that's invasive, to ensure that we don't have vegetation that we know has high oil content or will be flammable vegetation that won't create some of the catastrophe we've seen in California and other areas in the Western Hemisphere over the last 10 or 15 years. I think we've got a lot of work to do, and it's going to require that we stay engaged in this for decades to come.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't look at this as being a short-term fix. I would look at this as being an ongoing, regular part of our daily reality to ensure that we remain safe.
Right.
And we've reduced those conditions that have created harm to others in the past.
Fine, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Great. So we'll come back to me. The one thing I wanted to share with everyone is that there have been some updates done by the city clerk's office of, commissioner scopes, what are our responsibilities as being fire commissioners? How do we adhere to the Brown Act? There have been some changes, but in general, what should we be doing? What should we not be doing? One of the things we should not be doing is including all of us on emails. It should be basically a BCC to all of us. And so that's just one of the things that you'll find in the documents. And so rather than us kind of pick through all of the documents, and they've all been, brought to council, so city council, and so they're online. But I have asked the chief and team to maybe have a representative here so that they can come in and kind of share the most important parts with us. Here's the scope of the Fire Foundation. This is what you do. This is where you support. Here are the Brown Act changes and formalities that have always been there that we need to be adhering to, et cetera. This is what we're doing with alternates. Donna, one of your questions was, okay, well, we lost one, so do we get another one? And that's not, it feels great, but the answer is I don't think so, because it doesn't say that we're required to have 2 alternates. That was just something that council decided at one point, because we were having a lot of people who were going to be termed out and things like that. I think there's also another change that they made that basically is if someone leaves, or if your term is up, or even if you leave for some other reason, instead of going out right away, they're going to start doing it, on a biannual cycle or something like that, which I'm not, can't remember the details now. But we have asked for someone to join us at one of the next, 1 or 2 commissioner meetings, just so we can hear it from them, who is the subject matter expert, and then ask any questions that we may have.
So I'm curious. Why BCC? We all know each other. We all communicate with each other. Why can't Stan know? But what's the thinking behind it? That's what I'm asking.
It's a function of the act.
Mhm.
It's in the law.
But why?
Because it opens up Pandora's box
To,
to the public.
Or like, it's not as big of a deal with a commission, ours, but like the planning commission. All the planning commissioners can get together outside of a regular meeting and say, oh, we should vote no on this, and here's why, right? So you're not supposed to meet other than the public meeting.
right?
There shouldn't be more than 2 people, or whatever it is. I don't want to quote it wrong, because you're trying to make sure that that's not happening. So it's those types of things. But in the commission, we also have to adhere to that.
Got it.
We're not voting on anything, but we do fall under the
The Brown
same.
Act.
Yeah,
And if someone makes a statement and everyone's not BCC, but everybody's actually on the email thread, and it's a statement and there's responses that make it look like you're conducting official business, that creates complications.
Okay,
Even though that wasn't your intent.
Okay.
Now it appears a way that it not necessarily was. So
You
there's-
can't have official business of any kind without the public.
Yeah.
And if,
Yeah.
Okay.
No, right.
without-
And that's one reason why I think it was a great idea that we try to schedule something to make sure we're operating properly, because to be honest, I don't know Robert's Rules of Orders, I don't know parliamentary procedure, and I'm somewhat versed in the Brown Act, but not that well.
I think it's a great idea, yeah.
Yeah, especially since there are changes on the horizon, given, the availability of Zoom and remote meetings, and how does that work and when, and what's permissible and what isn't. Because I even see the MWPA, they're having abilities to do things that not everyone else is doing. And it begs the question of, well, how is that? Is it how they're interpreting things? Is it how they're structured? I mean, so
Right.
there's some differences. Nevada, same thing. So,
Yeah, and I feel like our fire commission has kind of interpreted it as we see fit, but the city clerk's office has issued, the documents, and they've always been there, but we just felt like this was a really good time.
Sure.
given that they have
Yeah.
updates to have one of them come in and talk to us about it, so
Mhm.
looking forward to it. It'll be interesting, and the other thing that we want to at some point discuss the actual agenda. So we figured it would be great to have them come in and talk to us about our responsibilities, scope, Brown Act, and then really look at the agenda and determine if this is the best format. Certainly, it's the chief's office that would be, approving that, but we can make recommendations. All right, and with that, we'll move on to the fire chief report.
Alrighty, well, this is a hybrid report of last month and this month's information, or should I say, March and April for May. So that being said, I tried to omit some stuff that I didn't think was really relevant, and I left the other stuff in and added a few more things. I'll start with the conversation we just had regarding Lovato and their shaded fuel break. 60 miles of work over nearly 3,500 acres, and they're looking to create a break that's anywhere from 100 feet to 300 feet wide, and that's a football field worth of distance if you're looking at it at its widest point, going for a 60-mile stretch, all the way from what I understand, from the northern part through across the western, probably even to some degree on southern portions of their border. So they're looking to do something that they, I don't know has been done anywhere else. And I'm assuming it has been, I just don't know of it being done somewhere else. But this is a major undertaking for them over a phased approach. And so it's not the only project like that. I think they just did a tour last week with the MWPA showing the Ross Valley and the other shaded fuel break. That's about a 37-mile stretch that they're looking to accomplish. And so these major breaks, I think they're a great idea if you have a big front of fast moving fire and you need a major break that potentially will stop it right at that edge and not communicate over beyond that break. 300 feet is a pretty good distance. Unfortunately, with winds and embers, that they can travel for distances quite beyond 300 feet.
80
So,
miles,
well,
80 miles.
well, I mean the embers that are blowing.
That's what I'm
might
saying.
drop. I haven't
It's been
heard of 80. That's
80.
amazing.
Yes.
I saw when I was with the Oakland Hills Fire, I was in San Francisco at Candlestick Park, excuse me. Yes, Candlestick Park at the time. And we had ash dropping in the stadium from the Hill Fire. So you figure that's 15 miles or thereabouts if you go linear. I had no idea.
Well, I read it, but that doesn't mean
So-
it's true.
Well, no, it
that's-
could very well
that
be.
stuck
because
with
You
me
never
'cause
know
it was-
where it carries, how high and how far.
The
right?
high winds,
So,
it can go as far as 80
That's
miles.
amazing.
Wow.
So when I hear about these breaks,
Yeah,
or like we've got the goats eating the hills in Terra Linda and in Folsom, and it's like, that isn't enough. On a windy day, that,
yeah.
it's not enough.
But it's an effort to slow things,
Yes,
if nothing
yes.
else, right?
It's a good
Maybe get
thing.
Resources in place, if nothing else.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it never is tested. So, but that being said, we also have in San Rafael, Marinwood, and Cal State Parks, another project getting underway that's designed to clear non-invasive species, clear some invasive species, non-native species, and invasive species. Let me get that right. Eucalyptus, acacia, some broom, and some other vegetation. The goal is to actually clear those fire roads because over the last probably century or so, there's been no lightning, fires, or anything else from Mother Nature to clear that out. So we're gonna have to take a proactive approach to trying to clear that out either mechanically or by other means. So that project is approved for movement this coming fiscal year as well. The board of directors is going to meet on the 18th to approve all the projects that have been recommended and or prioritized by the advisory technical committee and the ops committee. I wasn't able to attend the last ops committee meeting, which was held on May 3rd, and that's primarily because I was also hosting the director's briefing, and so it was my turn. And but Eric Drykerson from Marinwood stepped up and he said I didn't miss a whole lot, but the fact is all of those projects have been approved. Many of those projects are projects that were already underway, or just continuations of things that have been done in the first 3 years that we've had the MWPA and the projects resulting from the funding coming from Measure C. So a lot of work still being done. The community garden, they're getting closer to finalizing the community garden over on Beach Street. And so, we encourage folks to get over and look at the various species and the various recommendations they have on making sure that you have both resilient and or fire adaptive landscaping around your home so that you don't have, some surprises when one of those species that you didn't think was going to be a problem suddenly becomes a problem. And to that point, we've had notices of enforcement go out. I was going to say that for next month, but I might as well speak to it now. Roughly 200 plus individuals within the community received citation notices that they were not in compliance with our ordinances. And so with that, we've already had several people reach out directly to myself because my name is written on that letter and went directly to the mayor's office with their frustrations. And in some instances, I think it's people just have a affinity for the species that they've had because it has some sort of sentimental value. I completely understand and empathize with that. I'm a nostalgic kind of person myself, but when we talk about fire safety, there's very little room for exemption or flexibility, depending on the slope of your property, the density of the vegetation, the type of species, all of these things. And so I think people feel like we're just painting a broad brush across everyone, but in almost every instance, our personnel have gone out and been very effective at having one-on-one conversations, identifying the concerns that are on that specific piece of property. But with that, there's still some frustration out there. So my hope is that over the course of the next year or two, after the citations are addressed, those individuals know the expectations, adapt to the new reality, and we don't have to revisit the concerns moving forward. Because this is going to take a substantial amount of our staff's time to address. And it's starting to take some of mine already, but I'm okay with that because I'd rather be the one to engage with an irate community member than some of our members who really start to get, flustered or even emotional at times about their interaction with folks who are very frustrated. And we continue to offer alternative resources such as direct assistance and grants to help individuals who might have a need for assistance with moving either large scale things out of their property or just areas where they weren't able to get to because maybe perhaps the funding won't be available to them for some time. And so we're not coming with the club you over the head approach. We're trying to come with a collaborative approach and a educational approach to ensure we get compliance. But the final straw is, well, we've got to do something because your neighbors are watching what we're doing or not doing also. And so if we're not consistent, there's going to be a problem there. So just wanted to share that because you're probably going to hear from other people who are frustrated with San Rafael Fire Department when it comes to our efforts to reduce vegetation. Well, you guys can all remember when we had those atmospheric rivers back in March, and in particular, March 14th, we had a bunch of downed trees, flooding, things of that nature. And so I took a couple of pictures over at our old temporary quarters at Station 55, which are no longer being used. We had a tree come down literally about 3 feet away from the building. So with that, just a lot of activity during that period of time. I thought I had a photo of a blown over vehicle on 580, yes, on the bridge. I don't know if you guys all remember that situation.
Yes.
So it just kind of gave you a sense of, what we were dealing with here. And imagine those winds or that activity not being during a storm, but being during, October, November. That's the thing we're worried about, right? So this is why we're trying to do what we can to get ahead of some of the potential issues that we know can exist. I went down to Bahia Elementary back on the same day where we had all of this activity going on. It was raining. I had my chance to interact with the students in the 2nd and 4th grades there. Just read, basically did reading to the kids, and they had some great questions for me after the reading sessions were over. Questions I had not, fielded before, so I was really surprised at that. So lots of engaged youngsters.
Like what?
They were asking about specifically the truck and the engine, trying to understand what was coming to their house and why. Most of the time, the questions would be about how much do you earn?
Oh.
In this case, they wanted to understand the equipment, what happens with the equipment. Trying to remember one of the other questions that threw me. If it comes to me, I'll remember, but just to understand that we had an engine and a truck and there was a difference and told me our personnel had already been out there before.
Yeah.
Had been engaging with them. So I did receive a thank you note from one of the students. And I have a challenge point for that student, but I wanted to go above and beyond that. So I might actually come up with a t-shirt or something and then put it in the mail to that student because they took the time to stop by the Public Safety Center and leave me a thank you card with a drawing on it. So, Yeah, I thought that was very nice.
Chief, how do you answer the question, how much do you earn? How do you, I mean,
Well, I
I'm like, that's a
I
tough
speak
one.
about the range. You know, I say, well, some fire chiefs earn this amount, but I've seen cases where fire chiefs can earn up to this amount. And so I don't tell them exactly what I earn. I just say
the
it
range.
ranges from here to there. Yes.
I was thinking you would say not enough.
Well, you know, we can argue that, right? But,
And of course, the salaries are public and they're published by the IJ every year, and for,
I just think it's so
Or,
interesting that kids are asking,
Yeah.
that tells me they're thinking about it as a career.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
it's something.
Their parents are
if I
seeing
do
that
that-
question.
Yeah.
Well, or they've heard some people complaining about, you know, public safety being paid and they just sit around or something, right? You never know what the question is or the
Okay.
reason behind it, rather. But yeah, it's public knowledge, and I give an example. I don't really speak to it unless I'm speaking with an adult, but Santa Clara, as an example, one of my counterparts is earning somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000 a year. And he's not doing the job any different than all the rest of us are. He just happened to go to an agency and community that's paying very well. In fact, you could argue that because he's got a lot of staff, he's actually not as, you know, tasked as some of the other fire chiefs are, but we're all happy for him. He's a good, you know, good individual and he's got a lot of great experience. He came out of San Jose and then went to Livermore Pleasanton, and you know, he's had his share of stress just like, you know, the rest of the fire chiefs have, but now he's landed in what we call tall cotton, right? So, you know, but to us, that's tall cotton as fire chiefs, but for someone else, that might be just entry level money for them. It depends on what you're doing. So, but yeah, so that's how I usually generally speak to it in just range terms.
Got it.
Yeah.
there was a period, some years back, when the IJ was regularly publishing the 10 highest paid public employees in the county. San Rafael Fire had the top 2 and they were firefighters.
And they were working all the overtime.
But
Yeah,
that's
OT.
they
Yeah.
work a
Yes,
lot.
they were
Yeah.
working
And I
a
don't think people understand
huge
that.
amount of
No.
overtime.
They think that's their salary.
Well, it's ironic
Yeah.
because that same thing happened in Oakland, probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a prime because they had the chief on camera on Channel 2 that morning and asked about it. And he just kind of acknowledged it and said, yeah. And I thought, oh, that's a missed opportunity. He could have explained what it cost that individual, you know, so much time, lost time with family,
Yes.
the health ramifications, the lack of sleep, those things that, you know, start to become a problem for you as you continue to work excessive amounts of overtime. And so, but he didn't speak to it, and I think he just kind of pulled back, and maybe that was probably the best approach. I don't know, because he didn't want to open a can of worms with the local 55 personnel, I'm sure, by saying something or getting caught in a question and answer series that he didn't want to get into. So, but yeah, so there's a lot of that, that's for sure. Spanish CPR, Angel Landaverde and Juan Alejandro taught Spanish to, and Narcan administration to 33 community members. It's funny, I just saw something this morning on the news on Channel 2 that spoke about Narcan being placed on college campuses now, so that, and maybe even now high school campuses, but certainly college campuses because of the risk involving fentanyl. So.
It was being handed out for free at farmer's market a couple of weeks ago.
Wow,
Whoa.
yeah,
How is that administered?
it's a spray, I thought you.
Yes, a nasal spray. I have it.
You talking to Marin County farmers?
Yep.
That's wild.
Yeah, so all that to say, more information to follow on Angel Landaverde and the group's trip to Central America. I believe they did another Firefighter Without Borders trip and help community members in the Southern Cal, or excuse me, South American community. Well, and we're going to power through the rest of this. Monday, March 20th, we recognize yours truly as Commissioner Emeritus, and thank him for almost 20 years of service as a commissioner, and then for many years of service helping us with photography for fire investigation and historical information and just a host of other things that very few members can actually claim they had hands-on or did through the course of their careers. And so we captured it here in our minutes with a couple of photos. I think every city council member was there, as a matter of fact. And I think you'll see that we also had been graced with the presence of our current president. She was there as well. So
Rachel Kurtz wasn't there.
she was not?
No. I noticed she was absent on the vote again
No, you're right.
this time, and I thought, what's going on with Rachel? Where is she?
I saw her the day
She
before
okay?
yesterday. Yeah,
She's
but
okay?
Oh, yeah, I
she was here the day
was in
before
Israel.
yesterday.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking, gosh, I hope
She
she was
was on a trip to Israel.
Nice.
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
very-
Station 54 and 55. 55 is open. There are a bunch of punch list items that have not been addressed completely at this time. Station 54 remains in, we'll call it, well, there's some effort there, but there's some other challenges they're still trying to address as well. That being said, we're almost 16, 17 months into not having our units there, and we were projecting roughly about a year. And at one point, we were projecting 10 months because things were moving along. But concurrent with this, we're having some significant challenges with Wickman himself and some of their personnel. And so I can't go into detail about that right now, but I can say that it concerned me enough that I drafted a letter. That letter's been since forwarded to city leadership and our legal staff, and the decision's been made to kind of stand down on that letter because something else may be issued that really has more of the sentiment of what they want to communicate to Wickman beyond what the fire chief might say. So, maybe more to follow on that, maybe not more I can share on that though. So just wanted to put that out there.
Chief, is there going to be a grand opening at Station 55?
You know, that was a conversation that I started, and I don't think we got final resolve on that. I think the majority of the major issues have been addressed, but there's still a lot of small lingering issues. So I can't see why there wouldn't be, but I think there's a concern that until the punch list is done,
Yeah.
they don't want to do anything like that just yet.
Yeah.
So I think we're closer than we were, but I don't know if that's going to be disrupted. And to the point of maybe the punch list doesn't get finished by Wickman, but now gets finished by someone else as an example. So I'm not really sure at this point, but I'll try to find out.
So you said Wickman did both 54 and 55?
Yes. Our mechanic, Steve Ferrario, retired. When I understand, went to work immediately for Diego's. So, yeah, go figure, right? So part of our contingency plan was to take some work to Diego's, some work by DPW staff who are qualified to work on some of the apparatus things, are not qualified to work on our pumps, our engine pumps as an example, but we also have Chief Roman established some relationships with folks in Santa Rosa, and they've got a fairly large mechanical shop with qualified individuals. And so with that, that's a redundancy that we have in place that we're looking to exercise from time to time. But we've also advertised and we're trying to actively recruit for a new fire mechanic. More to follow on that. We had heard about 2 potential good candidates. I haven't heard anything since those initial conversations several weeks ago. So I'll share more as I get more, but the recruitment continues as far as I know right now. And then coming activities, Ember Stop, May 20th. I believe it's from 11 to 5 at the Marin Civic Center Fairgrounds. They're going to have the second iteration of the Ember Stop hosted by Fire Safe Marin. There's going to be a lot of different booths. There's going to be food. There's going to be a live burn demo. There's going to be music. There's going to be a lot of public information and probably a lot of people, depending on the weather. I believe the weather's projected to be nice on May 20th. So if you're able to go out, learn a little bit about wildfire preparedness and safety, and enjoy some good food and music, and maybe see what kind of live burn demo they're going to do. My goal is to be there, but I can't be there probably more than an hour and a half or 2 hours, because I've got 3 other events happening that same day. So I'm trying to get there and get back, get over to San Francisco. Well, excuse me. That morning, I'm out in Las Positas College in Livermore, coming back, hoping to get in a couple hours here. Then I've got another event in Oakland and potentially one more second event in Oakland. So I'm gonna be kind of crisscrossing a little bit that day, but they're all worth it to me. I want to participate in all of it. So, last but not least, we just hired 3 new lateral firefighter paramedics. We've got 6 more queued up right now as entry-level firefighter paramedics, with permission to overhire 3 of those individuals to fill our vacancies right now. We still continue to experience attrition. One of our newer members who just joined us last year is in a process with someone in the South Bay, and I found that out when I went to a Chiefs dinner, and he said, "Hey, Chief, by the way, one of your guys is trying to come work for us." Thanks. Who is that?
Heard no secrets.
Right. So, funny what you learn when you're not on the job, but somewhere in a
Social.
a restaurant social setting, right? So.
Maybe it's that higher paying district you mentioned earlier.
Well, it's not far from that district. Actually, it's not far from it, but they are paying a bit higher than we are, but they also have a lot more vacancies than we have.
Hmm.
And so be careful what you ask for. This guy may find that he's kind of put himself in a predicament. So, and that happened with one of our members that left to go to Oakland. He wanted to go to Oakland and get more experience. I think he probably got more experience in 1 year than he got in 5 years here because he's been mandatory several times out of the month. So, excuse me, when you add up the amount of time that he's working as a new probationary member, he's gonna be at the slower houses. I mean, excuse me, he's gonna be in the flatlands at the faster houses. There's not gonna be very much opportunity to be able to get rest. And he's a medic, so he's going out on every call. So, yeah, so that's why I say, be careful what you ask for, right? And actually, to this point, before I go, we had one individual who left to go to the South Bay Agency, the same one that was trying to grab this other guy that's on his way over there apparently. And that weekend, he had a change of heart. And I had had the conversation with him before he left, and I told him, I said, you're well respected and well regarded here. If you change your mind for any reason, there's an opportunity we might be able to extend to you. And I got a call that Monday morning. He was due to go to orientation that Monday morning. And he says, Chief, I've been really thinking about this, and I think I'd like to remain. Is there any way I can be reinstated? So
Good.
we were able to bring back one of our members who had just made a decision to leave and then recanted. So
Do we do on a regular basis, like you got the heads up that somebody else is looking to jump? Will you once again try to hold this person?
no, I don't want to discourage anybody from pursuing what they think is the best opportunity for themselves. What I will do is I'll have a conversation with them like I did with the individual that left to go to
So you
Oakland.
do something.
Oh, I have a conversation.
Good, good.
Yeah, and in essence, it's just trying to understand, well, two things. One, I have a conversation, and two, in some instances, I have what's considered an exit interview.
Exactly.
And in the case of the individual that was leaving, I decided I wasn't gonna do an exit interview. I just have a conversation. And I think that conversation may have been a little bit better than the exit interview. Maybe it gave him something to think about. And so I don't want to label it an exit interview, although I'm trying to get to some of the reasons.
Sure.
Why. And those reasons vary. They can be anything from it's closer to home. They had worked as a reserve in that organization or an explorer. They've got family in that organization. It's an organization that's larger where they might have more opportunity for advancement. I mean, the reasons vary. The big one has been, people don't want to pass by 20 different fire stations to and from home. And they're like, wait a minute, I can work here, probably make the same or better money, and I'm not driving as far away. So I'm not losing as much time. And that's our most precious resource, right, is our time. So I think people from this generation are certainly landing on that differently than firefighters have in previous generations. So, yeah. With that being said, I'm sorry, it's 5:09. If you don't mind, I'm supposed to.
Jump.
Yes.
Nine
Go.
minutes late. Meeting adjourned at 5:09,
Okay,
unless anyone has anything else.
perfect time.
Probably.
Thank you. Well, I'm traveling just down the street, the State of the City event.
I'm noticing that there are a lot more prescribed burns going on in the county.
Yeah, there was actually one that was